Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of the FutureSox Podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me this evening is James Fox, our managing editor. How are you, James?
Hello, sir. How's it going?
It's going well. So I woke up to your tweet about Bob Nightengale's article this morning. Apparently, the White Sox have tried to open up extension talks with Garrett Crochet, and things were not favorable. And they don't feel like things are going to work out the way that they want them to. So there are now rumors that they are trading Garrett Crochet.
Yeah, so it very clearly says in there that they intend to trade him. Talk to 15 teams. I mean, who knows, right? We got the report on the Padres a couple weeks ago. I think with the Dodgers being leaked, it's a clear shot at other NL contenders or, like, hey, the Dodgers offered a bunch, but not enough. Like, come get him instead, right? I don't know. I don't know what's going to, I don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, I guess at this point, when Bob says something, we should believe him, probably, right? So if they intend to trade him, my guess is they're probably going to trade him. I thought the only reason they wouldn't trade him is because they wouldn't get enough. But if they do it, obviously, like, I'm talking in circles here, but like if they do it, I think we're going to, I don't know. I don't want to say that we're going to be okay with it, but like they're going to get a lot. They're not going to sell him for cheap. And this might be his biggest value. The thing that I'm unsure of now is Steve Stone, like notorious organizational shill, that talks to Jerry Reinsdorf all the time, like said on the broadcast today, referencing Garrett Crochet, I think he's going to be here for a while, like implying that he's not going anywhere. Now that could very easily just be like, hey, Bob wrote this today, like this is our shot at, whatever. Like it could just be nonsense, but I thought it was weird. So yeah, I mean, I would prefer they extend Garrett Crochet. I just don't think there's a deal that they would do that he would accept right now. I mean, we talked a little bit off air. I mean, even if like you offered that guy 5 years and $100 million right now, I don't know that he takes it, because if he keeps pitching like this, he's getting 200 million plus 2 years from now. So
Yeah.
I totally understand like them coming to the table thinking it's not going to work out and then trading him. I mean, I tweeted earlier today, John Danks 5 years, 65 million, Dallas Keuchel 3 years, 55.5. They offered Zach Wheeler 5 at 125, but it never went there. I mean, like he's going to eclipse all of those things. So maybe Jerry Reinsdorf has been willing to like pay pitching contracts these whole times and his front offices haven't done it. I doubt it though.
Yeah. My question is, what is the motivation for Crochet to want to extend at this point for a less than number? I think that if you're going to want to extend him, you're going to have to put up a fairly large number in order to be able to get him to want to stick around. I mean, he says that he wants to be here. Of course, he's going to say that. What else is he supposed to say? But what's the motivation for him to take a he's only making what $850,000 a year, something like that now. What's the motivation for him to take like $10 million when he's going to get that in arbitration as he scales up here anyway? I would think that he would probably be more motivated if he felt that the team's direction was something that was going to be worth sticking around for at this point. Does he think that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like if he had 4 years left and you're throwing $150 million at him, like he might be more likely to take it. But I mean, like 2 years to free agency, he's 24, I think. 20, like he's going to be a 27-year-old free agent as one of the best like left-handed starters in the big leagues. And yeah, like maybe we're going out on a limb saying that, right? Like I think you agree with me, but like I have no reason to believe that he's not this guy at this point. So like, he's going to get paid like a lot of money. So there's really no reason for him at this point to extend. To the point where like I don't even know that he would extend with the team that he gets traded to. I would just rather have 25 teams bidding on me than sign a contract with one team. There's just, and we can get into the injury thing. I know we both kind of agree. There's like a narrative going around that I don't understand at all, but I've seen it like all over Twitter.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question here, is that we hear lots of people saying that Garrett Crochet is an injury risk and that they should get rid of him now while they can before he gets re-injured. The odds of somebody having to get another Tommy John so soon, to me, seems a little bit Chicken Little. The sky is falling, trying to avoid running into that, but I don't see that there's really any evidence to support the fact that he's going to get injured again if he continues to pitch. Do you?
No, I don't understand it. I mean, I've seen like people think he's like some sort of ticking time bomb. Like, look, he's been hurt multiple times, but I feel like all of that's been related to the elbow. Like, it takes a while, right? You have forearm issues, you have shoulder issues, and then eventually, like, hey, the elbow went and he had Tommy John. Like, I think you could argue that he's like stronger now maybe than he was like even when they drafted him potentially, like with a new elbow. So look, like how long is it going to last? I don't know. Usually it's like a decade. Like I just like don't I don't see an injury concern. Now, there's an innings load concern for sure, right? Like if you tell me that a new team doesn't think he can pitch for them in the playoffs because they need to shut him down or whatever and they're worried, like that's fine, right? But I don't think like his arm's going to fall off or something. Like that's like the narrative is like, oh, he's going to get hurt again, trade him. I think that's nonsense. Like I would sign him. Like I think he's awesome. Like when you want awesome players, so pay him. But we root for a mom and pop shop. But I mean, that's not even the point of this. Like and I even side a little bit with the front office. Like, who your owner is, right? Like, what type of deal you're going to be able to sign this kid to. If you've like discussed that and it's a no-go, then yeah, trade him. Like they don't have a choice. Like what are you going to do? Like wait for what? They're not winning next year. And then you have 1 year of control. So like, I totally understand like if they feel like they need to trade him. It sucks for White Sox fans because this is the type of guy you should just keep forever. But I don't think that they're going to trade him because they think he's like going to get hurt again. I think that's crazy.
Yeah. And so Doug makes this comment, can't get enough for Crochet to trade him. Now that's ultimately the, where we're at here is how much are you going to be able to get for him? And you have to be cognizant of what other teams are going to be willing to give you, knowing that he's probably not going to be able to help you in this current capacity down the stretch going into the playoffs, just because he's simply going to run out of innings this year. Now, when that happens, I don't know. But even, Steve Stone says, right now he looks real strong. So who knows how many innings you're going to be able to get out of him before he finally peters out and just is not ready to go for the rest of the year. I don't have an answer to that.
I know. And for anybody that didn't read Nightengale, like I can like read it quickly. So he just basically said they quietly engaged in brief contract extension talks with ace Garrett Crochet, but with no optimism towards reaching an agreement. They intend to trade him by the July 30th trade deadline. They've had 15 teams calling to express interest in Crochet, who's making just $800,000. It's under team control through 2026. The X factor for suitors will be determining just how much Crochet can help them in the pennant race. So like the same thing that we've always talked about though, right? Like that sort of thing. But he did also mention the Los Angeles Dodgers have already made an offer for Crochet, but it was quickly rejected. The White Sox have informed teams they're seeking young prospects with enormous upside. So, Doug, I feel like if they make this trade, they're going to get a ton. And if they don't get a ton, they'll just keep them. And maybe then it's this winter or the next deadline or whatever. But I don't see Chris Getz making a deal and we're like, yeah, he did okay. I don't like with him and Robert, like they have to hit home runs on these or they can't do it.
Yeah, that moves us to the next one, who is also kind of linked in this whole thing, that Luis Robert also is obviously, the object of many a team's affection here and wants to make a deal for him. Same thing. We've heard that they might not want to trade him until the winter. At what point do the White Sox say, if we trade these two guys, especially with the amount of control that Robert has, you're essentially starting out from absolutely nothing. So you had better get something that's going to be able to fill these spots. I feel like the pitching's almost at that point where I feel pretty good with what they're going to have on the other side of a Garrett Crochet deal. but you're still going to give up a fantastic left-handed arm, which is obviously not easy to find.
No, but I mean, for literally, like, for you to win again, right? You need like 8 position players. You need like 8 starters, right? Like, I just, like, next year is not realistic, and 2026 probably isn't either. So, and now, like, I don't think those years are going to be like where you're winning 50 games, right? But it's going to be a lot of young guys trying to figure out, like, we're going to know a lot more in a month, right? Early August, we're going to know a lot more because we're going to have an entire draft class. We'll see how many high school players they take. If this is like 5 college guys to start off and it's like a bunch of bats, like, then maybe that does kind of indicate like they're going to try to get guys on the same timeline as Montgomery and Schultz and some of these other guys and speed this thing up a little bit, right? But I mean, if it's Connor Griffin and like some high school pitchers, like, this might take a while. Like, I mean, we're going to see what they get in trade, right? And I'm not one of these people who, like, I've seen people say like, oh, they need to get AA or higher. Like, they need to get the most talent possible. Like, especially in a Garrett Crochet trade. Like, if you're looking at a team like the Padres, I'm not thrilled with a Padres offer, but I mean, like, Ethan Salas and Leo DeVries, like, one of those guys has to be in it. And I know it's like scary getting a teenager that's like in low A as like a centerpiece, but that's the type of talent that you have to get. So I don't know. I think we're going to know a lot more 4 or 5 weeks from now, like after the draft, after this deadline. I'd bet against Robert going just because to me it seems like Mariners and Phillies are like the only teams that could really do it, and I just feel like nobody will. But I think they might do it this winter instead. It's just weird trading him in season.
I'm interested. We on Tuesday we're recording with Joe Doyle, who is a big Mariners guy and has kind of a unrivaled insight into that club as far as people here on the Twitter sphere and all that stuff. I'm really interested to hear what he has to say about this very topic.
Yes,
kind of slide that in conversation.
we are. Yeah,
to find out.
I told him that we were going to ask about it too.
We have to.
I will say in the past, like within the last month, he floated who's like the catcher that people thought was going to move to the outfield, Harry Ford. I think he floated Harry Ford and Lazaro Montes, the outfielder, and then some other stuff. I kind of think like you have to get one of those infielders from them, one of Emerson or Young. So
have to get one of them. Yeah,
that's what I mean. So I don't know, and we'll see. We'll talk to him. He'll be cool about it. So
yeah.
But I mean, that's one of the teams that they're supposedly scouting: Dodgers, Padres, and Mariners. The White Sox top scouts are, out watching Padres, Mariners, and Dodgers games.
Yeah, if I feel like if the White Sox are talking or looking at the Dodgers, it's going to be you're looking at very young guys in a return. It's not going to be anybody that's relatively close, and I'm along the same lines as you where I want the top talent back. I don't care where they're at really in the farm system, if they're an A-ball, that's fine with me. I just want the top talent there.
I mean, it's all they can do. They need to get the most talent into the org as possible. Like, you're going to have to spend eventually. Yeah, I mean, you fill in the gaps later. You get as much talent as you can, and then you fill in gaps like at a later point. But yeah, we'll see. If he gets traded, I feel like it's Dave Dombrowski all the way. Like, it's just Dave gets a trigger happy, and just all of a sudden you have Aiden Miller and Starlin Caba, and you're taking a chance on Painter or Abel, and like you get all of it because he's crazy. So
yeah, I had the Phillies slotted for Michael Kopech from the offseason, so it would 100% not surprise me if he ends up there, and possibly, Luis Robert if they really, really wanted to make a splash and go for it. Now, talk about an evergreen statement here, Trey.
He could be talking about anything.
A disaster day. Exactly. Could be any day. So one thing that you wanted to get into and address here is the feeling by most that Chris Getz is overmatched and that Chris Getz doesn't know what he's doing. your thoughts on how you can even have any semblance of a clue as to whether he is overmatched.
I mean, this dude hasn't even had a draft class yet. Like, I don't think we know. And I think, like, look, last year at the deadline, like, Rick and Kenny were running things, and I think they've had positive returns on those trades. Chris Getz took over. I think both of us have been on board multiple times. Not the hire we've made. I would have brought somebody in from the outside. But that also doesn't mean that, like, Chris Getz is definitely bad at this. I love the Brian Bannister hire. I like that he went outside the org. I think he has a good sense of what he doesn't know, and he tried to hire people to, like, fill in those gaps. And I mean, even like, look, they went cheap, right? Like this offseason, but that's like an ownership issue. They also have like the worst team maybe of all time, but like I haven't really focused that much on that. Like, look, I don't think anybody thought that they were going to be like maybe the worst team ever, but I think we all kind of thought that they'd challenge for worst record in baseball. Like regardless of what like they traded Cease, I think you said right away they were going to win 50 games. I mean, we were like kind of on this, right? But I mean, even with that, Eric Fetty, they signed for $15 million. They're going to get something pretty good for him. Garrett Crochet had a ton of doubters that he could even do this, let alone be this guy. So like they get credit for that. Like Garrett Crochet deserves the most credit for it, but like they've decided to start Garrett Crochet and he's this. They decided to put Michael Kopech in the bullpen. And while he's wild and weird and they're going to get something for him too. They pick up Tommy Pham late. They're not going to get a big prospect for him. But I mean, that's a success. DeYoung is a success. Like they got a guy that might be in their bullpen next year for Robbie Grossman, who they signed for nothing. So like Chris Getz might be terrible at this ultimately. Like a year from now, we might be like, wow, this was bad. I don't think we know that. We don't know anything. We have no idea what kind of team he wants to build. Like everybody assumes he wants just like grindy little slappy defensive guys. Like we don't know that. Like we don't know anything. We're gonna know a lot more in 4 weeks. So, but there's like some positive returns, right? Like there's good stuff in the minors that we talk about every week. There's a lot of pitching development. The offense is a huge problem, and they have to fix it like throughout the entire organization. And we'll see what they do about it. That'll be like either if he gets it right, they'll be back contending, and if he doesn't, it'll be their downfall.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. It's how do we know? Obviously budgetary constraints were put on him pretty hard. And the easiest way for him to try and field a team that was going to not be the abomination that last year was supposed to, that what this year was supposed to be fix, ended up, of course, being a colossal failure through the first half of this season. But it's a lot of stuff that you really couldn't have predicted, that guys just forgot how to catch the baseball, and things that just seem to happen here in Chicago, unfortunately. But I can't say that that's what he wants on his roster. It's just what he was able to afford to put on the roster with wanting to completely reshape and reform how this organization works. I'm interested to see the direction that this whole thing goes. Obviously, the draft is going to be a big thing, as is the trade deadline. We'll see who he decides to move, and we see whether or not we're completely tearing it down to the studs and starting off with an entire new 26-man roster, essentially, come next year.
Well, I mean, you trade those two guys, you're tearing it down to the studs. Now, you're going to have one of the better systems in baseball. That doesn't necessarily get you anything, but it's better than not having one of the best systems in baseball, right? And you also have a ton of money to spend. And I know that's funny, like, the guy who like criticizes Jerry Reinsdorf all the time. But I mean, look, I think they're going to spend again. They're never going to be a big spender, right? Where they're handing out $300 million contracts, but there's no reason they can't have a payroll in the 150s, like when they're winning again. And they have no money committed to like anybody except Andrew Benintendi. So I think there's like a clear plan here. They have to execute it, and it sucks. Like for the time being, like every team in this town is like this, and I think it's just part of the. There's just like rebuilds everywhere, and it's rough. And I think he's paying a little bit for like Jerry Reinsdorf speaking and saying like, oh, Chris Getz doesn't have to, learn the organization and like that sort of thing. I think people kind of thought they were going to be better than they are. I don't know why people thought that because the roster's terrible, but I think he's like paying a little bit for that. Actions, baby. Don't listen to what these people tell you. Like pay attention to what they do.
Yeah, that's fairly accurate. So speaking of Andrew Benintendi, you keep him around for any period of time. I mean, they have to be shopping him and getting, trying to get rid of him.
Oh yeah, Bob said that today. They're trying to trade him. For what?
I mean,
for who? So he's owed $50 million over the next 3. I think a real organization might just DFA him and realize it's a sunk cost and play kids. This is not one of those organizations. So he'll likely be on the team. So I kind of floated, like, I don't have any names, but we were kind of talking a little bit before the show. Like, I wish there was like a pitcher or two, like you could send Benintendi somewhere for like a really bad starting pitcher that's overpaid, because I would trust that better. Like let Bannister work with some, like a Patrick Corbin or something, just to get, like, it's a colossal, terrible deal, right? Like what's Blake Snell making? Like would San Francisco like to send him over and you could pay half of the Benintendi deal and take, like something like that just to get rid of him? I don't know. I think he's going to be here because I don't know why anybody would take it.
I'm going to bring this up here real quick. Rutherford was a top 100 prospect when they traded for him.
He was.
That is true. He was also projected to have a lot more power, and he's a Yankees prospect, so they always have the most helium for any prospect that you could ever possibly think of for whatever reason is.
I was at the Sox game that night and hated that trade. Like, I liked Blake Rutherford. He's never hit. But like the rest of that trade was weak. For what they gave up. Tommy Kahnle had a lot more value than that, and then they just had him eat contracts on the other. It was a terrible trade. That in hindsight was said that they had to save all that money to pay for Luis Robert. So, it's just kind of the way that a Jerry Reinsdorf organization runs. So,
unfortunately so. We see how the Bulls have been handled. So
don't. I don't want to.
I have to open it up a little bit here. The Bulls are basically like a microcosm
a little bit
of what you can expect with a Jerry Reinsdorf ownership. Is that he tried to, and I'm not saying that David Sampson was, 100% truthful with what he said about dangling the carrot here, but just keeping it good enough just so you can compete and keep money flowing into the building instead of actually fixing the problems.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly what we're looking at here,
Well, Dan Bernstein on 670 always says that the Bulls just want to do dinner theater, and it's like the perfect thing, because like they sell out every night. They're number 1 in attendance. They have a team that's on the hamster wheel of like mediocrity. And for years, they should have been trading off veterans when this whole thing didn't work. I swear, guys, we're only going to talk Bulls for a couple minutes, but like when it doesn't work, you're obvious sellers, and they don't, because ownership like wants to make the playoffs for any chance at playoff revenue, because that's what that business is. The difference between the Bulls and the White Sox is that the Bulls are an incredible business model. They make so much money. And I think they finally realized that they can tear this thing down to the studs and they're still going to lead the league in attendance. So just let your front office do their friggin' jobs and like do this properly and stop meddling. The White Sox are different. The White Sox are in a position where nobody goes to the games, rightfully so. There's unsteadiness with their next TV deal. Like nobody knows like who's getting distribution. They need a new stadium, and there's no plans to get one. So like they're much different. But it's also much harder to win in the NBA. Way, way harder, because if you don't have one of the best dudes in the planet, like you can't win anything. So that's where baseball is a little bit different.
Yeah, that's not happening, Doug. I'm sorry to.
I can't. I don't think I can get Ian to do that.
That's not happening.
Caleb Williams is going to save our city. So.
Yeah, I've seen this. I've seen the T-shirts from Obvious Shirts.
Yeah,
so last thing I wanted to talk about here with the pro side of things, because That's not what we normally talk about here so much, but I just have to. Yesterday in the White Sox game, the White Sox are up by 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. They don't have any outs, and Pedro Grifol has Nicky Lopez bunting to move guys over to second and third. Corey Lee comes up after that, hits a home run. So we essentially just gave them an out for doing absolutely nothing. Now, his fascination lately with bunting over guys, I just wanted to bring this whole thing up. I don't even necessarily really even want to talk about it. I just hate it so much that I wanted to mention it. You have anything on that at all?
Well, no, bunting's stupid. I mean, bunting's stupid. Like, it doesn't. And I think when we say, like, when people say, like, bunting is bad, like, bunting, like, sacrificing is bad. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you got a speedy guy that wants to bunt for a hit and get on, like, sure, But didn't he do it in extras too? Didn't he have Benintendi do it today too?
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess like in extras, like I get it. I still wouldn't do it because it makes you less likely to win. But like, if it's like the 12th and you bunt the free runner over to third and you get like a chance at a sac fly because you want to go home, like I get that, I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
But
like,
you're ahead by 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th.
I know. Like,
do you need 5 insurance runs instead
well,
of
he
4?
did,
Like,
well, and he did move the guy, didn't he?
Yeah, he bunted him over.
I don't think he did. I think he hit it to the right side. Because there was another time. So there was another
today
time
he did. Yeah, Nicky Lopez today
where Nicky Lopez missed 2 bunt attempts.
He did. Yeah,
and then he grounded it to the first baseman and moved the guy over
Right.
anyway. Yeah, which is what you should have just done the whole time then. So, hey, Nicky Lopez is from Naperville?
I think I heard it mentioned once.
Yeah.
So let's move over to the minor league side of things here.
This is controversial too, by the way.
Which part?
This next guy, young George.
Yeah.
Unless you're not there yet, we can do it later.
No, yeah, that was where I was going. I was hoping that I mean, it's not that controversial, I don't think, but some people do seem to think that we're nuts for suggesting this. George Wolkow is starting to put together much better at bats. The White Sox roving hitting instructors came to Kannapolis and worked with him. And since they came there and worked with him, his at bats have looked quite a bit more mature and a little bit more well planned out. I know that you and I had talked about this, but why don't you go ahead and throw out what you think, if this continues, what we're looking at here going into probably the postseason lists, I would imagine, or preseason of next year.
Yeah, so I just think like with a 130 WRC plus as an 18-year-old in low A, like prospect guys love loud tools, right? Can he get to 20 bombs? I don't know. He might get close, like into the teens, right? And then you can count the Arizona League ones too. I mean, if he's like a 130 something WRC plus guy as an 18-year-old with 20 bombs and low A, like he's gonna fly up the White Sox. Like you might get back end top 100 consideration somewhere from somebody. And I know like there's a lot of people on Twitter that just think like this guy's just like some unknown that nobody's ever heard of because he was like a 7th round pick, and it's just not the case. Like he was a top 60 draft prospect last year. I'm going to ask, one of the questions we're going to ask Joe on Tuesday is, if he was in this high school class, like where would he go this year? Like if he played at Downers this past year, like because like they got him for $1 million in round 7, but it was like really like a 3rd round pick. So he is like much higher ranked than, where he came from. So yeah, I mean, look, the K rate's a red flag, obviously. And he's got a 433 BABIP, but he hits the ball so freaking hard that like he's always going to have high BABIPs, not 430, right? So his first 11 games in Kannapolis, 28 strikeouts and 48 plate appearances. He's had 45 plate appearances since with 12 Ks. So Like, it was all in that first, like, and he did the same thing in Arizona this year. He's always going to be a high strikeout guy. He's going to strike out a ton. It's going to be over 30%. But it can't be 50%. And it's not going to be.
Yeah.
Like, if he keeps doing, you know what I mean? Like, if he keeps doing what he's doing now. So, this kid, like, should have graduated from Downers Grove North High School like 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's like playing against men. Like, we always talk about Kannapolis, like they won the what are they? Carolina, they're in the Carolina League now.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, like, a lot of it is on the backs of like older college talent, right? It's one of the reasons why it's not like they're like teaming with young teenagers and they won the league. No, they won the league with older guys, right? But those are the same older polished guys that George Wolkow is facing now, like hitting, right? Like like some of these older advanced pitchers that the ballers have, other teams have those guys too. So it's like really hard. Like, he was playing on backfields against terrible players, and now he's in Kannapolis. And the fact that he's even like doing what he's doing, like, I'm pretty surprised.
Yeah. Clutch asks if the K rate is salvageable, and I'll say absolutely. If you watch what he's done over the last week and a half or so, his plate approach has been. I mean, I'm not saying that there are not still strikeouts. There are still strikeouts, but what you're seeing is much better, much more well put together at bats. The approach is quite different. He's going to the opposite field more, and he's not swinging as much, and you're starting to see more ground outs and flyouts and less strikeouts. And you're actually starting to see some walks as well, which he had one today. He didn't get a hit today, but he did get a walk, and he had a walk yesterday. And he's been putting together some pretty good at-bats. I would not 100% not be surprised if we start seeing him show up on the top 200, top 100 lists that people put out, for sure, if this is a continued thing that goes through the rest of this year here.
Well, he has like a 9.5% K or a 9.5% walk rate, right? There's been like touted White Sox prospects that we've ranked high that have like a 5% walk rate, that never walk ever. And like, we don't even talk about it with this guy, and he's like at 10%, like, which is fine, right? So and he hits the ball so hard, and it's kind of like what you said, like, he's up the middle, opposite field, like, he's still going to hit bombs because he has so much power, that
it's effortless. He's just going out to opposite field. It's like he's just nice pace on his swing, and his plane's really nice, but he's just putting the barrel to the ball, and it ends up just going out. He's just got that much power.
Yeah. So, I mean, this isn't just like some guy that like nobody's ever heard of before. He was a monster on the high school circuit. Like, the biggest questions were the swing and miss, obviously, and how big he's going to get. Like, where can he play? Like, to me, he reminds me a lot of Joey Gallo. If he gets much bigger, I don't know that he can play the outfield anymore, but he can right now.
Yeah.
Like right now, he looks like he can play in right field. Like, that's fine. But he's very lean, but he's just enormous. So it's like Spencer Jones, who everybody loves because he's the Yankees prospect,
Yeah, which that, my feelings on that. But he he did have a 2 home run game just like George Wolkow did. So,
well, I mean, think about this. Like, so George reclassifies as a 17-year-old. So he could have, in theory, played his freshman season at South Carolina this year, and then he would play there again next year. I mean, if he does anything as a 19-year-old at South Carolina, like he's doing here, like, he's going to be like a first-round pick probably. You got him in round 7 for $1 million. So yes, he's a real prospect.
I mean, you could say that, yeah, he'd be a freshman at South Carolina, but as we've seen here in the last week or so, I wouldn't expect him to play at South Carolina if he was doing any of this stuff next year, because he would be in the portal. Everybody's in the portal.
Well, I think those guys are going back to A&M now with the hire they made today, apparently. So
I saw some guy signing a contract, but I didn't see who it was.
Yeah, so they hired Michael Early. He was the head coach at Arizona State before, but he's Texas A&M's hitting coach.
Okay.
So they promoted the hitting coach, thinking that all these guys are just going to go back now. And then he hired a sitting head coach as his pitching coach. I don't know anything about the guy, but he was Washington's baseball coach, who now is the Texas A&M pitching coach instead of being Washington's coach. So
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean Laviolette, all these guys. It seems like they're probably all going to go back to A&M now, which great. I don't really care about Texas A&M, but good for them. All those guys are going to go back, so that's cool.
Yeah. I messaged you yesterday. It's like all these good players just dipping out on all these teams and just going somewhere else. Like Ole Miss, I think he's their best player, their third baseman, hit like 25 home runs this year, transferring out in the portal. It's just like it's a
how many of the top guys this year? So I mean, like Chase Burns pitched at Tennessee and Wake Forest. He might be the only one though. I think the other guys kind of stayed like where they are. Like Kaggs was at Florida the whole time. All the
you don't leave Florida if you go to Florida.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So even like
unless you're not playing,
there's some other guys like Wake got a couple of transfers, but yeah, no, it's I mean, it's not like it's just baseball. It's football and basketball too. It's the transfer portal's nuts. It's why you see a lot of sitting head coaches leaving, right? Like Chip Kelly was the head coach at UCLA and he left to become Ohio State's offensive coordinator because look, I know nobody's like going to feel bad for these college coaches that are making $5 million, but I think it would get really old, like recruiting your own kids every day to like stay at your school. Like it's just ridiculous.
So I wanted to talk about this just briefly, and I don't really want to get too deep into it, but how did you feel about how that whole Texas A&M thing went down? And do you think that that there are going to be like any tampering things that come of the way the whole thing at A&M was handled, where he's going in, he's not even in the College World Series. I mean, he's in the tournament, but he's already discussing with Texas if he's going to leave or not. And he's going on recruiting trips, knowing full well that he's already going to Texas.
Well, he was so like there were rumors online that him and his coaching staff were like texting recruits from burner phones to like transfer to Texas. Now, I think part of that is just like the calendar, right? Like all these schools that are out of it are doing similar, like recruiting kids, whatever. And he happens to be in the title game. So I don't know that like excuses it, right? I just kind of feel like I don't know. I mean, I think the worst thing he did was just like the way he treated the school reporter, like for sussing out the stuff. I don't know how these guys are so bad at this. Like they're just so terrible at like, I think every once in a while, like if you would just be honest, right? Like, hey, look guys, like the Texas AD is like a longtime friend. They're doubling my salary. It's a great deal for me. I'm leaving. Like is anybody going to really take issue with that? Like they're gonna take issue with you sitting there saying like, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I love Texas A&M. How dare you question me? And then like the next day you're going to Texas. Like what? Like this happens all the time with these people. Like they're just I don't really. It's like they think nobody's listening. Like it's like no, we just like replayed the tape of you saying something dumb. Like what? Like it is what it is, man. Like you're leaving for a better opportunity, just like most other people would. Like to go work for your buddy for double the salary, like at Texas instead, but you don't have to be a jagoff about it.
Yeah, it's Schlossnagel, douche nozzle, all the same thing to me.
He did the same thing at TCU when he came to A&M. He's like, I'm not leaving TCU. Why would I do that? And then he's gone.
Yeah. So this kind of is where we were kind of heading in this whole thing anyway, is going into the draft.
Yeah.
So Clutch brings up something that you had also tweeted about, which future White Sox star first baseman Jack Caglione is a Gator through and through. So let's get to the draft here. Let's get a little bit of talk about that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to be talking to Joe Doyle later this week from the Future Stars site, talking to him about the draft. But let's get a little bit into that. What are you hearing? Are you hearing anything else interesting that's making the rounds out there right now?
Well, so I guess just like for me, the first thing, like, did you think the Cags thing was weird or no? That it was like public. Like I feel like this stuff happens all the time. Probably like you just
in
have like
football, it certainly does.
Like, don't
But
like do baseball teams have like I know they sometimes they'll hold workouts and you have a top guy come in. Like I remember talking to Noah Schultz's father about like, he said that he came in and visited like pre-draft, but like it wasn't publicized, right? So I saw on a message board the other day, like, oh, Kags is in town. And I'm like, oh, is that like a secret? And then some kid tweeted about it and I put it in my article that I wrote. Like apparently they talked about it on pregame. Like
well,
Garfine talked about it and showed him at the stadium, like, as he was there meeting with, and it was funny, he was meeting with Pedro. Here's one thing I can guarantee you. Pedro will never coach Jack Caglianone. That's never going to happen. So,
yeah,
like that's like the thing that I'm the most sure of. They seem to have a lot of interest in him and a couple others. Reading Jim Callis's latest mock though, and I heard him on White Sox Weekly with Connor McNett. It seems like Kags is like going to be gone because I think, we were assuming that Colorado was going pitcher, and that doesn't
yeah,
seem to be the case. Like to me,
really,
it seems like the shenanigans are at one. Like it's really like how much does Cleveland want to save? It's not going to be Condon because he's not taking a deal. So like, does Bazana take the deal? Does Weatherholt take the deal? Whatever. But then at that point, it seems like Kags is going 2 or 3. Like it's not even going to be an option for the White Sox. So, and I don't know, we're like 12, 13 days away, So like in Callis's mock, he said like the White Sox are between Connor Griffin and Weatherholt. If Weatherholt went 1 and Condon and Kags and Bazana went next, like, are they automatically taking Connor Griffin? Is Braden Montgomery in the mix? I don't really know. I mean, the things that I'm the most confident on, they're not going to take one of the pitchers because everybody says they're taking a hitter.
yeah.
And I have it on pretty good authority that they're not going to take Nick Kurtz either. So, I guess anything else is like an option, and we're going to be sitting there on draft night, like, because this like never gets predicted this way, right? Like last year, Wyatt Langford was a lock to the Tigers at 3. How could they pass on him? And then, they took Max Clark. So, we might be sitting there at 5 with a guy that we're not expecting, and that's who they take. But I mean, I would say I'm pretty confident it'll be a bat. And it seems like at this point, it's likely to be Griffin, Weatherholt, or Jack Caglianone. So I don't know. We're gonna have a couple guests on, and we'll see what Joe Doyle's thinking. The week after, we're gonna have a Guardians guy on, and kind of go from there. But I mean, we're gonna keep asking the Guardians question, and people are gonna keep telling us the same thing. Like they're gonna decide at like 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock on that Sunday, probably. So
yeah, ridiculous. I don't know if we brought it up last week on this at all. Was that we are having a live show on draft night? I don't know if we brought that up. I can't remember if we did or not. I'm starting to get old, so my memory's going, I guess. But if you didn't know, we will be live a couple of times on draft night. We will not be live for the entire thing because we're not doing 4 straight hours of stream. But we will be on a couple of times that night. And so Troy's asking if Montgomery is an option again.
So here's the thing. I've never heard that he's like not an option, but I also like haven't heard them linked to him. I just kind of feel like if the board goes the way Callis anticipates it going, right? Like if Weatherholt's off the board somehow, like if Weatherholt goes 1 and then you're looking at Kags and Condon 2, 3 in some order and the A's take Bazana. Like if the White Sox aren't comfortable taking a prep guy, like I guess Montgomery probably could be in the mix theoretically because they're not going to take Kurtz and they're not going to take one of the pitchers. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say no on Montgomery. I just haven't really heard it specifically.
Now I remember that Trey was around for the draft show last year.
Yeah,
and I enjoy.
Is he mad like Elijah was?
He was not. He was not happy. So I'm hoping that I don't like to watch the world burn, but it's at least.
But I'm okay. I mean, I'm okay with Braden Montgomery. I just haven't heard like the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Callis, so I said this already, I think, but Callis really said, like, he thought Griffin or Weatherholt. I just have a feeling Weatherholt's not going to be on the board. He makes total sense to the Guardians at 1 if they're looking to cut a deal. Like, because,
Yeah.
like, if he's not going to go until 5, then take $8.5 million and go 1. Like, what, you know what I mean? It's just, to me, it makes total sense. And if you're Bazana, we're going to talk to Joe about this too. Bazana has an agent that doesn't really like cutting deals. We're going to get into a lot of this with Joe Doyle, because to me, like, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, okay, you might not go till 4 to the A's and get $8 million, right? So why wouldn't you take 8.5 from the Guardians? There's just some agents that are like, look, the slot's 10. We're not taking any less than 9.5, even though that means your client falls to 5 and gets 8. That doesn't make sense to me. But these people are egomaniacs. So, and the draft is so much like about money, obviously. I'm going to pass on who asked me about their other picks. I do have buzz on their other picks, but I'm going to write something on it. This will be next Sunday night show. So tune in next Sunday night and I'll talk about picks 2 and 3, because, like, paying attention to the calendar, like, we'll have our other 2 shows, I believe, this week. We're also going to drop the podcast with Joe Doyle. We'll be live next Sunday night, just like a week in advance of the draft, essentially. We'll drop another bonus draft pod with Jeff Ellis. And then in our normal slot, we're doing the live draft show at 6. So hoping to have a couple of guests on too throughout. Not super guest heavy, because I think, me and Ian can digest and talk about the picks. I think we'll probably stay on till like around the Cubs or so, 14, 15, and then get off for a little bit and hop back on after the Sox make their second pick and see if we can stay awake all the way up until pick 68. So we'll see.
Well, I'll be up.
Well, yeah, you'll be cutting
always
video,
up.
or,
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So another thing that I wanted to bring up here is that yesterday you had another White Sox combined no-hitter in the minor leagues. Seth Keener, 6 no-hit innings. And then you had Luke Bell, who went 2 innings. And then you had Nick Altermat, who also went a scoreless, hitless inning. And you get another combined no-hitter. That's 2 in the minor leagues for the combined no-hitter for the White Sox minor leagues this year. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's like really tough to do. I guess I didn't really notice it, until like they were like tweeting about it. But yeah, I mean, it's good. It's like a bounce back for Keener too, right? Wasn't he? No, it's 2 times.
His last game was pretty decent. I mean, it wasn't terrible. The one before that was really good.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I did see Noah Schultz, still good.
Yeah, still real good. He went 3.2 innings yesterday, struck out 7 in 3 2/3.
And the Smokies are good, supposedly. So
they are. They were tough on all the pitching, and they're always difficult, for the Barons. They are the way that the Cubs are, where how they try and preach having, very patient hitters and guys that work counts. And that's exactly what they did. And they drive up pitch counts. So I think Noah was at 62 or 60 something pitches yesterday when he got yanked at 3.2. And he was not happy while he was walking off. You could see that he was not pleased with how the game went. But
he probably wants to like pitch more, you would think. You know what I mean? Like, eventually this kid probably wants to keep throwing.
I mean, I think that he at least would have liked to stay in to finish his inning, at least, Yeah. But, just like with Kai Bush today, Kai Bush only went, he went 5 innings, and he only gave up 1 run, but he was at 90-something pitches.
Yeah.
It's just something that the Smokies do, and they are real tough. Like, even Mason Adams had 2 walks. I mean, that's crazy. If he's got 2 walks, something's going on. So, yeah, that was a nice, very difficult week for the Barons. And the Smokies pitched them very well, except for Matt Thompson. Matt Thompson only made it an inning and 2/3 against the Barons before walking the bases loaded, and then Jacob Gonzalez came out and hit a grand slam.
Yeah.
So,
so Schultz has 72 Ks in 51 innings. I think we're going to get him like up into the 90s. I think there's an outside chance Baseball America has him as the top pitching prospect in baseball. It's basically him and Job of the Tigers, I believe.
Yeah.
And even like I listened to the most recent podcast at MLB Pipeline, like they have Schultz further down the list. And I think Jonathan Mayo Mayo said that he just like needs to see him pitch more. But Jim Callis said that, like Schultz is the best pitcher in the minor leagues. So like, regardless of where you rank him. So, I mean, like he's going to be like a top 10 prospect in baseball pretty much everywhere. So, like the only question at this point is innings. Like how many innings can he throw? He looks like an ace other than that. So,
yeah, I listened to the Just Baseball, first half minor league team, and all minor league team, and Noah Schultz made it in for them as well. And
well, I would hope so. Nobody hits him.
Yeah, he's nasty.
Like, nobody ever gets hits off of him.
Yeah,
like he has these like frustrating outings where it's like 3 singles and a guy scores and then he's out after 3 2/3. Like, but it's like 7 Ks. No, he doesn't walk anybody. He's averaging like just over 1 walk per 9. So I mean, yeah, he's ridiculous. Do you think they let him pitch the Futures game? They have to. Right?
I had wondered that, kind of exactly like how I had wondered if the White Sox are going to let Garrett Crochet go to the All-Star game or if he's going to choose to go to the All-Star game. I mean, realistically, when you look at it, it's not like Garrett Crochet is going to pitch in any game that's more important than the All-Star game this year.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't stop him from going to the All-Star game, and if I was him, I would also go pitch at it. That's a good question because I guess I'd have to look and see.
It's usually AA or higher.
Yeah, that part I get. I'm wondering where it's going to land. Like they're going to skip his start that week anyway because they're going to be off.
Well, don't they? Yeah,
right?
Like don't they do it on that Saturday?
Yeah.
So that would be his day. I mean, my guess is he goes. My guess is him and maybe Caro, and those are your 2 representatives that go.
Yeah,
that would be fine. There's no way. Like you got to let him throw an inning in that game.
Yeah, just so people can get eyes on him.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be like, "What is that thing on the mound?"
Right.
And then they're going to be like, "Oh, that's what that is," and then it'll be a thing. Which it is already for prospect type people. But
should Crochet start the All-Star game?
I mean, he's number 1 in K per 9 and number 1 in strikeouts. So obviously he's pretty good. And the thing that he brought up when talking about it earlier today was, it'd be a big honor, or maybe it was when he was being interviewed on Friday. I can't remember, but he said it would be a big honor because it's voted on by the players.
Yeah.
So if people are saying that Garrett Crochet should start, I mean, why not? What else more important does he have going on this year?
Well, I think it was like the first at bat of the game today with like Steve Stone was talking about how like Charlie Blackmon was in the lineup as a lefty because he has like this long history of like just being solid like against both or whatever, and he just like was lost. Like there was like nothing he could do.
It does not matter. Yeah, it really doesn't matter what side you're hitting from. He's just gross from either direction. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You got anything else for this week?
No, I think we're all good. We're right here in draft season. I think we're going to have a lot of trade rumors, but like I've said, I don't know. I don't think we're going to get many trades till. I think we're going to be doing trade shows like after the draft because it's going to be fast and furious. We'll be firing this thing up and doing emergency episodes.
Yeah, I kind of think that like that's one thing that we should definitely get into here is having like a another run through because we talked about it like in passing for a bunch of these things, but we got to figure out who's gonna be gone. Because I mean, there's gonna be a lot of guys gone. I think that's
we got 5. We have 5 minutes, right?
Oh, we have 5. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
talk about it.
I mean, it's going to be a lot of players. I would say no on Robert. At this point, I think I would say yes on Crochet, though. Like, it just seems like they're going to do it. When Bobby wrote it today. Bobby Nightengale. So. But I mean, definitely Fetty flexing for something, right?
He'll go. Yeah, why not? He'll go.
Kopech for sure.
Gone.
Probably a couple other relievers that we're not thinking
Brebbia,
of.
Banks,
Wilson, Banks, like just for whatever.
possibly Justin Anderson.
Soroka throwing nothing but sliders for the Rays, like.
Hey, he pitched really well today.
He did because he's got it because he should throw nothing but sliders.
Yeah.
And then what? DeYoung and Pham.
Yeah, DeYoung has more home runs than he had last season in like 55% of the at bats or something.
Yeah, he's been better than Dansby Swanson.
A lot cheaper too.
Way cheaper.
Yeah. Well, that's rough.
Illinois State guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he could help somebody.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if that's your guy coming off the bench, if that's your guy's, at least a decent defensive replacement, it's not bad. Do
you think those returns are like the Robbie Grossman return, except for guys whose names are easier to say?
Hoopy Tuiyonotoa?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not bad, right?
Is that like a similar return for those? You get a reliever that we like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say so. To be fair, though, I think that the only reason you probably got Hoopy Tuiyonotoa is because he's closer to, he's Rule 5 eligible.
Yeah, and they paid a premium because it was super early. That's what,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's obviously not a Cubs podcast, but like I listen to a lot of sports radio, obviously, as people that know me kind of know. And I feel like the impatience, and I get it, right? Like I'm not a Cub fan, but of the fans, but even like the hosts in the city that just like want to talk about, like they have to do something. And then their GM or then whatever, like Hoyer comes on and like the other guy, Carter Hawkins, come on and they're like, well, you can't really make a trade right now because you're paying a premium. Like they're right. I mean, you can't make it. You can't make a trade. You can't make a trade right now.
If you don't want to pay for it, if you want to,
you remember the Aroldis Chapman deal last year?
Last year?
Yeah, you remember that trade to Texas? So the Royals traded Aroldis Chapman to Texas super early. It was like June or May.
That I do remember.
Yeah, they got Cole Ragans in return.
Oh, okay.
Who's been awesome for Kansas. I mean, that's
good.
When you jump the market, that's the type of guy you're giving up. So none of these teams want to do it. So they just wait, and it all happens in 72 hours.
I did not realize that they got Cole Ragans for
Aroldis. Yeah, right. Okay. But those are, like the Cubs can go make a deal right now, but you're giving up a guy you don't want to give up, and by the time you are ready to make a deal, you might be so far out of it that you just sell anyway. So yeah, a lot's going to change.
Yeah. Especially if you get rid of Benintendi, I wouldn't be shocked to see Vaughn gone,
I really
he's been hitting.
So that's interesting. I wouldn't be shocked either. Like if all of a
somebody
sudden,
might actually want him with the way he's looking right now. Now I wouldn't say, hey, that he's going to fall off in like mid-August, right?
But I mean, if you're like the Yankees, and
I've seen that article,
and he's like the 7th best hitter in your lineup, and you need a right-handed complement to Rizzo, and you don't think Rizzo's coming back, and you have all these other guys
and he's all concussed all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, Andrew Vaughn is like the 7th best hitter in your lineup. Like it's okay.
And if you need a left fielder because Stanton's always injured, throw Andrew Vaughn out there.
Well, I think it's so funny that he even you think Bob Nightengale was laughing when he typed the Benintendi part? They're also trying to trade Andrew Benintendi. Ha ha ha.
I mean,
I don't know how you even type that with a straight face.
I mean, I would be happy if they did.
It's like if you're like one of these White Sox beat guys that's like tweeting Pedro quotes. It's like, guys, come on. Man. I know he said it, but it doesn't mean you have to tell everyone he said it.
Just
it's like
let's not talk about it.
Just ignore this guy.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. So I think that was pretty
so
much
over. So if I put it at 8.5 guys traded, over.
Oh, Yeah, over. I'm
Yeah,
going over.
okay,
On
okay.
26-man roster,
Yeah,
on this
yeah.
26-man roster, absolutely.
Yeah. Now,
Come
not
on.
8.5 trades, but 8.5 guys traded. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
'cause
mean, yeah, no, I
there'll be
don't
some bundles.
yeah, there'll be some double ups for sure. Like Dave Dombrowski's gonna get a couple of guys,
Yeah.
AJ Preller's gonna get a couple of guys.
Jerry Dipoto might make 3 separate trades for guys on the White
He
Sox.
might, yeah. But
Yeah,
he's getting multiple
yeah.
guys as well, for sure. So, I don't know. We'll see, But yeah, I definitely say over. That seems to be the consensus in chat as well, that it's going to be over. So,
All right.
Yeah. So, FutureSox.net, you can find all of our written content. If you are listening to this in podcast form, and you can find this anywhere you look for your podcasts, know that you can also hop on YouTube and on twitch.tv/FutureSox to find us on Sunday nights. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He is James Fox at JamesFox917. We appreciate all your time. Thanks for coming, hanging out with us in the chat. You will be seeing a lot of content coming here, fast and furious. Now that we got the draft coming up, and then after that, the trade deadline's coming up. So you're going to see multiple episodes a week. Just keep your eyes out. We will also obviously we'll tweet about it. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night, and we will catch up with you soon. All right, thanks.